The story began in Class 2 Ampers on a day in April, with students chatting among themselves. The narrator explained that the curtain was about to rise on a heroine race centered around a single young man. The scene then shifted to three boys calling out to Izumi, inviting him to hit karaoke after school. Izumi, with a tense expression, wondered what was behind the sudden invitation. All three boys shouted at him, saying that the Syrian High girls would be there as well, and that it was the one place where looks mattered and family background could shine. Izumi thought to himself that it was just a mixer, and muttered that the three of them were idiots. The boys looked confused, while Izumi noted internally that they were simply tightening the rope around their own necks. He then flaunted his hair, thinking that if he went, he would end up monopolizing all the girls himself, sighing at how pitiful the three of them were. The three boys fell silent, and Izumi remained quiet as well. Embarrassed, he suggested they throw him a retort, otherwise, it would just look like he had bombed them. One of the boys muttered that yes, he had bombed, and the others began muttering among themselves. One thought that he shouldn't have said anything if he was going to get embarrassed. Another wondered if they even needed Izumi at all. The third suggested finding someone better at talking. Frustrated, Izumi complained that they had invited him only to treat him like this. The narrator remarked that a man being so bashful was simply pathetic. Izumi thought to himself that Shituru and his friends were just too much. As he was about to finish his thought, he suddenly noticed something and asked what was happening. At that moment, Amane Amasaki appeared and greeted him with a cheerful, "Good morning." Izumi recognized her and noted that it had been quite a while. Another girl ran up and hugged Amane, exclaiming how long it had been. She asked Amane about her modeling work, commenting that it looked like she had taken a long break. Amane explained that her father had told her to broaden her horizons, so she had gone to Los Angeles with him. The girl, looking surprised, chatted with Amane, marveling that going overseas was amazing and recalling that Amane's father was a designer. Amane said it wasn't a big deal and mentioned that she had brought souvenirs for everyone. The class erupted in excitement. One student asked if she would be in trouble since there was a quiz in the first period that day. Amane, with a smug smile, told them not to worry. She had already done all the preparation. Another student, impressed, muttered that it was crazy and just as expected of the top student in the class. Amane then remarked that it couldn't be helped and declared that she would teach anyone who was struggling. The narrator explained that Amane Amasaki was a working model, a fashion icon for teenage girls, a top student, and extremely social, and that reputation was well known throughout the class. The scene then shifted, showing a girl peeking into the classroom and calling for Amane to go home. Inside, Amane and Izumi were studying. The girl commented that it looked like yet another study session. Amane apologized while the girl turned to Izumi and said it was wasted effort, since even with Amane teaching him, he was barely keeping up. Izumi snapped, telling her to shut up, and insisted that she watch him earn that recommendation. Amane apologized again and declined the invitation, saying maybe next time. The girl then remarked that Izumi was working hard too, and seemed to be enjoying it a little. As she left, she praised Amane as a goddess and warned Izumi not to cause her too much trouble. Amane slammed her head on the desk and in desperation apologized for making Izumi pity her. She begged him to teach her how to study properly. Izumi sighed and asked how long she planned to keep pretending to be a model student. He thought to himself that it was already too late for her to stop now, and wondered why everyone continued to be fooled by her. A flashback followed, showing Izumi handing out notes to Amane when she had been absent. He reflected on how busy Amane had been with work, leaving her barely any time to study, and how she had almost repeated a year the previous summer. Since then, Izumi had been running study sessions for her, drilling key points as quickly as possible. Another memory surfaced, showing him thinking that it couldn't be helped, and that she would inevitably teach anyone who was struggling. Izumi realized it had all started when Amane's grades improved, giving her confidence to declare she would help others. Now she couldn't back out. He noted that she had done the same thing again that very day. Amane admitted that she simply could not refuse when people asked her for help. Returning to the present, Izumi explained a formula to Amane, silently thinking that even if she was just pretending to be an honor student, the fact that she was dedicated enough to teach others was impressive. He acknowledged that she must have been smart from the beginning, and on top of that, she worked hard, squeezing study time between her jobs. The bell rang, and Izumi announced that they would call it a day since he had other work to attend to. Amane looked up at him and asked if he, too, was pretending to be dumb and unable to back out of anything. Izumi explained that he could earn top grades when he tried, but life was easier when no one expected much from him. He added that just watching Amane work hard was more than enough for him. Flustered, Amane clutched her shirt and with an almost tearful expression, begged him not to tell anyone that she was the one being taught. She confessed that he was the only person to whom she ever showed her weak side. Izumi reassured her that he knew, and Amane replied that saying that was all she wanted. Izumi then left the classroom. Left alone, Amane sighed and muttered, "Good grief," before confessing to herself that she really liked him. Sitting on a chair with her notes, she kicked her feet and thought that Izumi would not go this far just for a friend. She wondered if this meant the feeling was mutual, and considered that if one of them confessed, they might end up together. Yet, she worried, having never been out with a boy before, that things could feel awkward if they actually became a couple. Frustrated, Amane slammed her hand on the desk and declared there was no need to rush. She reminded herself that she was the one who truly appreciated Izumi's charm. Even with no competition, though, the situation remained exasperating. The scene then shifted to the assembly ground where students had gathered. A speaker addressed them, offering a few words that most students dismissed as mere chatter. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted as the speaker announced the next segment, a word from the student council president. It was Hakuya Shirajuku. Hakuya stepped forward and asked everyone to settle down. She introduced herself as the student council president and reminded the students that the sports festival would be held the following month. She emphasized that, especially for first years, by now they had grown accustomed to school life, and some might have begun letting their guard down. As Hakuya spoke, whispers spread among the students. One admired how dazzling Shirajuku-senpai looked that day. Another noted that even Yoshino-senpai from the basketball club had been rejected by her. Someone else commented that it was just as expected of the Ice Princess. Another student mentioned to Izumi that Hakuya was heir to the famous Shirajuku confectionery, and with her beauty and top nationwide exam ranking, she was unmatched. Izumi thought to himself that she was like a flower perched on a high cliff, completely out of reach. Hakuya continued, warning that carelessness could lead to injury, and urging everyone to work together to make the sports festival memorable. She concluded her address and stepped down, glancing at Izumi and smiling as he said nothing. The speaker resumed. The scene shifted to Izumi entering his apartment, calling out that he was home as he removed his shoes. Shirajuku greeted him, welcoming him back and asking if he wanted dinner. Izumi thought to himself, "Ice Princess, huh?" He reflected that Shirajuku-senpai lived next door in the same apartment complex and often came over to cook for him. Both of their families ran major companies as heirs, and their parents had once arranged an engagement between them. However, Izumi was no longer the heir, and the engagement, once chosen for political reasons, had become nothing more than a past formality. She was now simply his former fiancée. Shirajuku was already beside the table with dinner prepared, and Izumi thought that at least things were going as they should. She called out to him and reached forward to give him a welcome home hug. Izumi responded politely, greeting her in return, and she pouted briefly before smiling brightly and patting him, saying, There, well done." Izumi felt frustrated, realizing that to hide their former fiancé relationship, they avoided interacting at school as much as possible. After all, he was already a high school student. Yet the face she showed him in private had not changed since middle school. Shirajuku told Izumi that he would always be like a little brother to her. Even so, her presence was overwhelming. Trying to regain composure, he told himself to get it together, and gently pushed her. Shirajuku suggested they eat before the food got cold, and he thought that her sense of personal distance was completely off in private. After washing the dishes, Izumi apologized for always troubling her. Shirajuku replied that it was fine, as she was already making her own dinner anyway, and remarked that older sisters naturally wanted to spoil their younger brothers, which surprised him. Then she teased him slightly, asking if there was something he should say about her cooking. Startled, Izumi replied that it had been really delicious and apologized for not saying something so simple. Shirajuku pouted and asked how delicious it had been. Izumi answered that it was the best in the world, leaving her shocked and flustered. Shirajuku ran out of the house, slamming the door, declaring that she would make it for him every day from tomorrow. Izumi muttered that it was too much and that he would feel bad. Glancing at the beef stew she had prepared, he thought she was way too fired up. Outside, Shirajuku stood happily, thinking she had secured another big win that day by using her former fiancé's status to completely take over his life, a full-on life-and-wife strategy. She reflected that she had forced her way past her parents' opposition, pulled strings to secure the room next to Izumi, and now, With spare keys, there was no way for any other girl to wedge herself into his life. Shurajiku recalled middle school, remembering that Izumi had been the only one who saw her not as the daughter of a big corporation, but simply as a girl. She reflected that perhaps they had understood something about each other back then. But ever since he lost that position, things between them had felt painful. Still, she believed she was the only one who truly understood him. Resolutely, she promised herself that she would wait for Izumi-kun, and that someday, when she inherited her father's legacy, she would definitely stand by his side until the end. The scene then shifted to Izumi sitting and thinking about how all the students had split into the bento group and the store-buying group during lunch. He reflected that no one would ever guess that this lunch was actually handmade by Shurajiku-senpai. In his thoughts, he heard her voice saying, "Here you go, Izumi-kun. Today's portion." He reflected that, even though he felt guilty for relying on her every day, it was honestly a huge help for someone living alone. He finally decided to eat. Suddenly, he heard someone yelling not to approach Inori, and saw Satoru. Izumi wondered what Satoru was even doing. The scene shifted to Satoru on his knees, calling out to Izumi. Haru Kasuga explained that a man with a filthy, lustrous face had been trying to get near Inori. Izumi then saw Inori and kicked Satoru lightly inside the classroom, thinking it was probably his fault. He asked why the two of them were in the secondary classroom, considering that despite being first years, they were already well known around the school. Inori, with her adorable aura, was extremely popular with the boys, the little angel, while Haru, the crazy dog who bit to protect Inori, was the little devil. By some twist of fate, both were also his club juniors. Inori asked Senpai if they were having club today. Izumi replied that she could have just messaged him. Inori added that they were both free that day, and he agreed that would be a club day. They both acknowledged this. Inori then asked if he had read the book she had recommended the other day. Izumi apologized, explaining that he had bought it, but had not yet gotten around to reading it. Suddenly, Haru blocked him. Surprised, Izumi exclaimed her name. Haru told him not to get all lovey-dovey with Inori, saying that even small talk was off limits. The two then left, with Haru turning back to Izumi and calling him a damn leecher. Another student peeked at Izumi and asked if they were fighting. Izumi explained that he had just wanted to tell her he bought the book, and the girl commented that was rough. Finally, the bell rang and all of them were shown in the library preparation room, sitting and reading books. Izumi thought to himself that their library, their literature club, or more precisely, their literature appreciation society, was nothing more than a small circle of 3 people reading books and chatting. Izumi reflected that he had originally been the only member left and had planned to dissolve the club once everyone else graduated. He remembered telling himself that after graduation, he should take over the literature club himself. By chance, 2 new first years had joined, so the club had to continue. Another student in Izumi's thoughts had told him that if he felt like it, he could keep it going. Back in the present, Izumi observed that Inori was, as always, focused on her book, while the girl next to her was playing games. The gamer asked Izumi what was wrong, and he dismissed her with a complaint about being looked at with pervy eyes, thinking that the girl did not even pretend to read, and simply gamed non-stop. He reasoned that her whole reason for joining the club was to protect Inori. The gamer declared that the culprit was the little sister, which frustrated Inori and drew Izumi's attention. Izumi could not believe it and silently wished it were a lie. As he closed his book, he protested that she was not the culprit and accused the gamer of lying. The gamer insisted she hated spoilers with a passion, and I argued that even fake spoilers were still spoilers, and she shouldn't make him paranoid for no reason. Izumi complained that the gamer was being punished for neglecting her club junior and spending club time reading, and he wondered whether she even knew what the club was supposed to be. Annoyed by her habit of toying with him for amusement, Izumi stood up, pulled a chair closer, and faced her. As he grew flustered, he confronted Haru, accusing her of always treating him like an enemy and forbidding him from going near Inori. He suggested that Haru might be deliberately trying to get his attention. Inori watched the exchange quietly, without intervening. Izumi even reached out and touched Haru's chin, teasing that she simply could not be honest. Haru became very flustered and blushed. I then backed away, sat at a distance, and warned that if Haru kept acting like that, someone might jump her one day. Haru, frustrated, threw a book at Izumi, yelling at him. Izumi, unfazed, told her that if the hit was meant to knock some sense into her, she should fix her attitude. But the impact knocked him down. Haru shouted again, calling him a pervert and telling him to go die. Inori followed Haru while I got up, thinking that he had expected more of a "what are you acting cool for, you creep" comeback, but realized he had gone too far this time. He picked up the book Haru had thrown, and noticed it was the same one he had been reading. Haru looked gloomy. Another student commented that it had been entirely Haru's fault, pointing out that she had read ahead just to be on the same page as Izumi, but her actions completely missed the point. The student teased that she clearly wanted him to fuss over her that badly. Haru protested, but then reflected that it was supposed to be a faded reunion. A flashback appeared in her thoughts, remembering the middle school punk, and how she had gotten carried away just because Izumi looked a bit pretty. I, noticing the tension, interjected, asking how far they were going, and commenting that the little kittens were already scared. He got lightly beaten by 2 other guys after saying this. Back in the present, Haru lamented that even though she called it fate, Senpai didn't remember at all and treated Inori all lovey-dovey while treating her completely differently, which was frustrating. The scene then shifted to Izumi entering the school, where a girl was standing ahead of him. Someone whispered to Amane that Izumi was right there, and Amane replied nervously, insisting it wasn't like that. Another voice from above the stairs remarked that Izumi always passed by at this time, and maybe today they would finally work up the courage to greet him. Haru, standing nearby, said she didn't care about Senpai or anything. Her friend suggested it might just be to say hi to him alone. 3 girls greeted Izumi. The first said, "Good morning, Izumi-kun." The second said, "Good morning, Suzumi-kun." And Haru added, "Senpai, good morning." Izumi looked at them, but suddenly one girl stood up and confessed, "I love you. Please go out with me." The other girls were stunned and stared at both of them. The narrator remarked that there was only one sure way to win the heroine race, being able to say, "I love you," properly. The girl, Nano Nasi, held Izumi's hand, and the narrator continued. And thus, the Izumi Suzume chapter had already drawn its curtain. All 3 girls reacted in disbelief, each saying Izumi's name and thinking to themselves that they would not hand him over to anyone. The narrator explained that the outcome of the heroine race was still unknown, and that the battle between the losing heroines and the one who could properly say, "I love you," was only just beginning.